So here's something that I don't even understand the answer, but I'm going to pass on to something that you said just a couple days ago, and this is on your Twitter account. You said, some guy gave up his first-class seat for a uniformed soldier. People are thanking him. I'm trying not to vomit or yell about Mosul. Was that satire, too? What does that mean? Or are you going to blame Steve Bannon for that as well?
I think it's really irresponsible to blindly support, for example, wars that send off young people into combat, risk their lives, kill many others, as we've just seen in Mosul, 200 people incinerated by U.S. bombs, and to not do that in a way that expands anyone's freedom, that makes anyone less secure. The Iraq War
but
has
you're
not protected anyone's
you're blaming
freedom.
The soldier. You're not blaming the policymakers.
Oh,
you're saying
not.
No, you're saying giving
not.
up a seat for a soldier in uniform made you want to vomit. You're not saying giving up a seat for the guy who made the war policy, but for the soldier, the guy who's risking his life. Why'd that make you feel like throwing up?
I think U.S. troops need real support. They don't need symbolic gestures. What they need is not a first-class seat. What they need is health care support, psychological support. Women in uniform need to not be subjected to an epidemic of sexual assault. And more than anything, they don't need to be deployed, have their lives risked, be taken away from their families for wars that do nothing and no good for anyone.
But why is it bad to get, okay, that's fine, but why is it bad to give him a first-class seat? I'm missing that. Someone's trying to be nice to the guy who's going through all these hardships you just described, and that makes you mad. Why?
I'm all for generous gestures devoted toward those who most deserve them in our society, and I have the deepest respect for anyone who, particularly for economic reasons, makes difficult decisions, whether it's joining the military, whether it's, doing other dangerous work that has to take place in our society, whether it's being an economic migrant. And I think these people all deserve better. They deserve to not have to join the military if they would rather just get an education.
But he did. He doesn't have a government-subsidized job at a university like you. So why that make you mad?
To not have the health care and the psychological support that they need. This is how we support the troops, not by sending them off into wars.
Okay. So you began this conversation with reference to your own scholarship and the academic journals that you and your fellow professors publish in. And because I do want to take you seriously, I actually spent some time reading some of them today. And I want you to explain to me what this means. Now, I was an editor for a long time, not an academic press, but an editor. You wrote this, a piece called Dual Power in the Venezuelan Revolution. This is the second paragraph, and I'm quoting it. By viewing the process through the Leninist concept of dual power, that is the construction of an autonomous alternative power capable of challenging the existing state structure, we can see that the establishment of communal councils in Venezuela is clearly a positive step toward the development of fuller and deeper democracy, which is encouraging in and of itself. Now, that's a sentence with too many adjectives, a passive construction, imprecise language. It's high school writing. It's crap. And I'm wondering, is your scholarship serious?
I really appreciate you digging into the vault. I appreciate you digging into the vault to actually closely read some of my
You're not an impressive scholar. That's what I'm saying. You're a performance artist. That's not impressive.
That's shown himself unable to use Google today. This is really interesting. I've got 3 books.
What does that mean? I just read.
I don't need to flout academic credentials in front of you.
But you're not capable of writing a clear sentence. Now, I went through a lot of different essays that you wrote, and I've got an IQ above room temperature, and I couldn't understand any of them because your writing is childlike. It's childlike. And I'm wondering,
it's as though your entire
can you explain what that
you're
means?
Incapable of grasping very simple and very basic things.
Okay,
I've done
so what is
studies on popular power in Venezuela, on the development of what are called communal councils. I know them better than most, and I know what it means to develop these participatory institutions of democracy in Venezuela. I'm glad to talk about them. But if your entire shtick is to come on here and say that you can't understand basic English and basic sentences, I'm really not sure where to start.
But it's not basic English. I've spent a lot of time writing and editing basic English, and it's designed to make the idea clearer, not to cloak them from people. So 2 things are going on. Either you don't really know what you're saying because you don't understand it yourself, or you're trying to hide it from the person for whom you're writing. And neither one is impressive. And I guess my point is, the only writing I have read by you that I can understand clearly are your tweets, and they seem to be designed to shock people, to get attention. It seems, again, a species of performance art, not scholarship. Has this occurred to you?
I mean, performance art is scholarship. Let's be real about that. But you seem to be able to understand the very short pieces that I write, and yet when you sit down to try to read the longer things, you suddenly want to perform your own inability to actually read and to digest. Plenty of people have read my work, they appreciate it, and yet you're here defending someone like Charles Murray, who very few people defend, who is a
I'm not defending Charles Murray. I'm defending. I'm defending.
About them. We're here talking about.
I'm defending his right to say what he thinks, and I think that underpins all scholarship, is the right of people to say what they believe. We call it free speech. It's enshrined in the Bill of Rights, in the First Amendment to that bill. So I'm just surprised that you're not for that, but then I guess I shouldn't be, because you defend Hugo Chavez. But let me just ask you one final question. If your tweet...
Now, at no point in the First Amendment does it say that no one should use their free speech to protest. And I think you know that perfectly well.
No, but it's not a question of protesting.
At no point does it say that free speech should not be loud, it should not be disruptive, it should not be unruly. These are things that have a long and venerated tradition in the United States.
And I'm not against protest, as you know.
Free speech is very different.
Protesting, Professor. You're trying to prevent a man...
to an academic platform.
It's silly. You're trying to prevent him from saying what he thinks.
Right-wing think tanks.
Okay. Last question. The tweet that you're unwilling to defend about feeling nauseous as you see a man in uniform getting a first-class seat, you protected that. You prevented the public from seeing that right after you tweeted it. If you're proud of what you think and you can defend what you think, why did you do that?
I believe absolutely in the right of people to use these platforms. I believe in the right of Charles Murray, of course, to take to Twitter and to say, you know, to spew his kind of violent racism. But that doesn't mean that he should be invited onto a university campus to do so.
I'm sorry. I don't have a lot of time. I just want you to answer my question.
Those people that he says are inferior, those people that he says are inferior have every right to protest to him, to take to the streets, to demand that he not be able to speak.
But you're not answering my question.
As human beings.
You're going on racism,
inferior.
Okay.
Yes.
I got it.
It's racism.
Are you going to answer my question?
If you don't want to recognize Charles Murray as a racist,
why are you
protecting
your Twitter feed if you can defend your position? Why are you hiding it from the public?
Sometimes you need to protect your Twitter feed when people who like to go on and on about free speech decide that it's time to violently threaten people who are using that free speech. I would not violently threaten a Charles Murray despite him being a racist. And yet,
you didn't major in irony, I can see, Professor.
Right to go speak at Villanova.
I got to go.
Absolutely absurd.
Thanks for joining us tonight. Have fun in Mexico City.